Hi everyone, I'm so sorry I'm not there with you tonight to share my proposal, but thank you for taking a few minutes of your time to listen. The use of self-monitoring to decrease the frequency and duration of emotional outbursts in students with high functioning autism and average or higher cognitive abilities is my proposal. The review of literature showed that there's a significant causal effect for self-monitoring, as I think a lot of us knew. But a lot of what I read, the participants were students of low cognitive ability, more significant difficulties with the autism spectrum disorder than students that I work with. So I chose to look into whether that effect was still significant with students of higher cognitive ability, students who have the ability to prioritize their own needs and set their own goals and monitor more independently, the goal being that they would be able to be in a less restrictive environment with the use of this tool. The research question was, will self-monitoring decrease the duration and frequency of emotional outbursts that interfere with the learning environment when used by individuals with autism spectrum disorder who are of at least average cognitive functioning within a special education classroom? If intervention is successful, will the skill transfer to general education settings for those students who attend those settings? So my participants are 3 students based on students I actually have, grades 1st through 2nd, high functioning ASD diagnosis, average to significantly above average cognitive abilities. They all have IEP goals that address the duration and frequency of their problematic behaviors, and each can complete checklists and assess their own behavior. The setting is a self-contained emotional behavior disorder classroom, with the exception of one student who we would look at in gen ed as also. 7 students are in the room with 1 teacher, 2 parapros, and a BCBA that visits 2 times a week. The intervention would take place throughout the entire day. That's when we already collect data, so we're set up to do that. So the procedure for the intervention is training students on use of self-monitoring. I create a social story for that to help with that training, help them understand that it would have a effect on their ability to work within the already existing behavior management system where they have positive reinforcement for appropriate behaviors. The teacher would model using this sheet in different scenarios. One where they acknowledge they're upset, didn't have an outburst, stayed with thumbs up, which is the language of our classroom. Thumbs up is appropriate behavior, thumbs down is not. So they would also model what happens if it takes me a few minutes to get on track. And how's this checklist going to look if I never got to thumbs up, if I did lose control of my behavior. The dependent variable is the frequency of emotional outburst and the duration when they do occur. So an emotional outburst is defined as the participant not engaging in known expected work tasks and engaging in any of the following instead, like screaming, profanity, throwing or clearing materials, aggression, and so on. That covers the operational definition of all 3 students' behaviors. Data collection would be done on a data sheet that includes a definition, an operational definition of the dependent variable, the date, the incident number, start time, end time, and duration, and notes if necessary. I also create a procedural fidelity checklist to be able to check for that, that can be used by the BCBA observing or the teacher observing the parapros, making sure that the procedure is done with fidelity. The research design is an AB-AB withdrawal design, but it's across a multiple baseline of 3 different participants. So safeguards in this to the internal validity is there be a time lag between the second and third to the second and then third participant, so they're not getting any residual understanding from watching the prior participants engage in this intervention. There's no other alterations to the behavior management in the classroom. There's no reward for using the self-reinforcement or the self-monitoring beyond the improvement that would occur. Training would be done away from future participants, and there's a withdrawal phase for each of the students. So the data graphs, and I apologize at the bottom of this first one, I couldn't get it to not be cut off in this video, but first is frequency and then duration. Frequency, this says number of days. So this is the frequency in days. Duration is broken down per incident because there will be days where there are 0 incidents, so that's kind of up here. So even though they have that different axis label there, you can still see a common visual analysis there. The frequency is less dramatic because the highest frequency we were looking at is 4 in a day. So the range is not as great there. Duration is much more significant. It's close to 50 minutes a day. So you can see it more dramatically. It's a more significant change in duration. And as we'll talk about in discussion, that's actually stronger focus, I would think, of this proposal is decreasing duration. There's also built in for the second participant, Anna, a time in gen ed to see if this, once we've seen a therapeutic effect, if it carries over into the gen ed environment, which this graph shows that it does. For this bottom student, you'll see there's not a significant decrease in frequency because he only had a range of 1 or 2 per day, but there was a very drastic difference in the duration of those episodes. And in each of the cases, you did see an increase in problem behavior during the withdrawal period. So there's a significant therapeutic effect. Inter-observer agreement would be done by the BCBA who visits the classroom on 12 of 36 days of the intervention time. The frequency data is calculated by dividing the smaller number of occurrences by the larger number and multiplying by 100. Duration, similarly done, but taking the smaller number of minutes and the larger number of minutes, dividing and then multiplying by 100. The frequency data I would predict would be at 100% because it's a discrete, defined onset and offset of behaviors. Duration would probably be not quite as exact, but I predicted it at 96%. The BCBA would be monitoring procedural fidelity as well with that checklist. And then I'd also have the teacher collect that procedural fidelity to make sure the parapros are using the intervention as it was designed. So I predicted those fidelities to be at 98% and 88%. So as a discussion on the significant therapeutic impact on decreasing duration and frequency of problem behavior would be seen by this intervention. The participants, staff, and parents would all find this intervention to have high social validity because it has immediate results, low cost, and ease of implementation, as well as the reduction in the need to address problematic behaviors. The teacher noted that the duration of episodes is historically accompanied by an escalation of intensity of behaviors, so examining the effect of self-monitoring on such intensity would be an appropriate topic for further study. While previous studies focused on the intervention with students who have lower functioning ASD or cognitive skills, this study focused on those who are higher functioning and the ultimate goal of increasing their time in a less restrictive environment. Further studies could be done across different settings to get even more accurate results. Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. It was a pleasure going through this program with you. I have my contact information there in case there's anything I can do for any of you as you continue your educational journey as educators. It was great to work with you all, and I wish you the best. Thanks.